The story out of Jordan has always been a bit of a tricky one by Gulf standards. It's a fellow monarchy, there are a lot of shared interests. But now Saudi Arabia and the UAE really showing that they're willing to step up to the plate when it counts.
Right, and it really shows how important Jordan is to them, and that whatever differences there may be once in a while on the political scene, they see the stability of Jordan as part and parcel of their common shared interests. It also shows maybe possibly how serious they view the current events in Jordan. They're not taking it lightly. They're not saying, you know, this is part of the course. They do see that there seems to be something qualitatively different about what is going on in Jordan right now.
The protests clearly got a response from the Gulf. The question becomes is whether the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are going to be a backstop for some of the other countries that have often run into some payment issues, some budgetary challenges, or even reconciling what the IMF wants and what the citizenry want. I'm thinking along the lines of Morocco and Bahrain as well. I mean, is that going to be now a much wider conversation and ultimately one where it is a test of power for Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates?
Saudi Arabia has helped some of these countries already. I mean, Egypt does come to mind. But at the same time, also the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, have also made clear to some of those states that this is not, you know, something they're willing to continue indefinitely. They are also putting pressure on these countries to reform internally, to reform their finances, to reduce subsidies, i.e. to make the same changes that the Saudis in particular have been making and have been asking of their own population. So they're not willing to just write a blank check. They're actually saying, look, we're having to make those changes. There's pressure on us. Our reserves are going down. You know, you're going to have to make some of those changes as well.
In terms of the protests that we saw in Jordan, and we're seeing some pictures here as well from some of the press conferences that have been held, does that mean that Jordan is going to go back on track in terms of the reform process now that it has that kind of backing?
Well, that's I think what people are going to watch out for, because even though the king has changed the government, which is something he does reasonably regularly, even though they've, stepped back from the tax reform. The fact is that all these policy changes came for a reason. They came because Jordan was in trouble. Its debt has been rising, debt to GDP ratio has been rising really since 2011. It's kind of flattened out more recently, but it is an issue, it is a problem. It has a large youthful population. It doesn't have any serious natural resources to talk of, so it needs to do something, it needs to reform. You know, this might buy them the time that they feel they need, but the reforms, some reforms have to be done and have to be made. What they are, that's up to the new Prime Minister now.
Riad, what else stands out to you about the story coming from Jordan? You've been in the region for a very, very long time. Just give us some more context on that.
I think what stands out is Jordan has been the country where in 2011 with the Arab Spring there were some demonstrations, and there have been demonstrations throughout the period, but it's viewed as a country that's been relatively stable in spite of some of the problems that it's had, economic problems, and in spite of the influx of Syrian refugees and before it Iraqi refugees, which has put huge pressures on a country like Jordan, which again doesn't have the natural resources or the money really to deal with this effectively. So it stood out as this stable island in a region surrounded by countries that are in deep trouble. So I think there is a lot of concern all around about Jordan's stability, that this continues, that they are able to maintain this stability while implementing the reforms that are absolutely needed.